Have you ever paused, truly paused, to consider the enigmatic reality that within the same vast and different world, some souls seem to compel circumstances to their will, mastering their existence, while others remain perpetually paralyzed by the fear of being crushed by life itself? Carl Jung insisted that this world, far from being a capricious void, possesses an immutable order, and that this essential structure originates not in the external cosmos, but deep within the sanctuary of your own mind. The world is not your adversary. It is a meticulously polished mirror, reflecting the precise contours and contents of your inner landscape. Most people remain tragically unaware of this fundamental law, believing they are perceiving objective reality. But Jung pointed out a critical distinction. You do not see the world as it is. You see the world as you are. Every ingrained belief, every pervasive emotional image you hold in your mind is a silent, continuous force constructing the reality that materializes around you. For Jung, thinking is not merely a tool, it is a destiny. Each thought, each energetic surge of emotion, acts as a potent seed sown into the psychic field. Plant the seed of doubt, and you will inevitably harvest a chaotic external reality. Sow the deep root of belief, and you will harvest power and alignment. This journey we embark upon is not about assigning blame or seeking external validation. It is the arduous path of profound awareness where the authentic light of the soul is not sought in distant, unreachable heavens, but is found fiercely burning within the very psychological darkness you have spent a lifetime avoiding. Take a deep, settling breath and willingly discard every preconceived notion you hold about the nature of reality. This exploration transcends mere ambition or superficial success. It is a necessary ritual descent into the darkness of the mind, where you confront the foundational, often destructive, beliefs that have, without your conscious consent, silently shaped your fate. This is not a shallow promise of material wealth. It is a spiritual journey to reclaim your creative power, the innate right to decide what the world, your obedient mirror, will reflect back from within you. For only when you possess the courage to gaze into the abyss of the unconscious, to touch the most chaotic, unintegrated place within yourself, and realize with profound clarity that the one dreaming is, in fact, the one creating the dream, does the world begin to fundamentally change its shape. Are you ready for this awakening? Part 1. The mind is not a tool but a fate. Number 1. You do not control your life. You are being controlled by your mind. You proceed through life with the firm conviction that you are the captain steering your own vessel. You construct elaborate plans, set rigorous goals, and confidently declare, "I know precisely what I'm doing." Yet, have you ever paused to ask a fundamental question? Who is saying that? Who is the I behind the relentless voice in your head? If you cultivate the deep practice of internal listening, you will realize that for the majority of your existence, you are not truly living. You are only reacting. You are reacting instantly to old, lingering memories, reacting defensively to paralyzing fears, reacting compulsively to the inherited voices of your past. When you experience sudden, inexplicable flashes of anger, when you find yourself trapped repeating the same destructive life mistake, or when you are irresistibly drawn to relationships that replicate the pain of those who first wounded you, these are not conscious, deliberate choices. These are the powerful, magnetic compulsions of invisible structures residing in the deep levels of your mind. The personal unconscious operates with the rigidity of an outdated, unpatched operating system. It bypasses the question of what you consciously desire and instead executes only what has been meticulously programmed through past emotional intensity. Imagine attempting to pilot a complex aircraft, but the critical steering mechanism is subtly controlled by a blind, frightened child. That is the internal reality for most. They believe their conscious ego is at the wheel, but in truth, the unrecognized driver is a persistent, fragmented echo of an unprocessed emotional memory. What we routinely label as personality, natural reactions, or habits are, in the vast majority of cases, merely the visible traces of the unconscious living life in our place. Modern psychology validates this mechanism as the brain's overwhelming tendency to default to automatic behavior, conserving precious energy. The brain views change as a profound threat. The unconscious exploits this by utilizing emotional ruts, familiar, comfortable shortcuts, to inexorably lead you back to the old painful landscape, even if that landscape is known to wound you. This is why the conscious mind often laments, "I know this is destructive, but I am utterly incapable of stopping." Jung identified this pattern early in his analytical work, terming it the domination of the personal unconscious Shutterstock Explorer. This is the silent repository of all rejected experiences, suppressed fears, denied desires, and complexes, emotionally charged nodes of energy. These forces do not dissolve, they merely sink below the surface, where they transmute into the shadow. And it is precisely that shadow that will gradually, relentlessly control your behavior from the invisible world below. You may expend tremendous energy in denying its existence, but it remains vibrantly alive, and the more it is vehemently rejected, the stronger its compulsion becomes. Consider as an example, the individual who feels an incessant need to control every aspect of their life, their career trajectory, their intimate relationships, their future prospects. They often project this behavior as a sign of strength or competence. Yet, this is often a profound manifestation of the fear of losing control, a primal unconscious terror perhaps forged in a childhood where the world felt too chaotic and unstable, demanding an internal rigid grip to survive. As an adult, this very compulsion for control tragically strips them of authentic freedom. We often assign the label of personality to these repeating chains of behavior, but for Jung, these are the active manifestations of the unconscious revealing its agenda. He viewed human beings not as simple rational agents, but as complex universes of symbols. Every seemingly random action, every habitual choice, is an encrypted message sent from the depths that consciousness cannot yet access. When you consistently choose a career path that leads to exhaustion, or when you are irresistibly drawn to a lover who perfectly mirrors the parent who hurt you, this is not cosmic coincidence. It is the unconscious attempting desperately to achieve the completion of an unfinished story. This is why Jung's work bypassed the shallow mandate of positive thinking. He taught a more difficult truth, the necessity of seeing, the act of recognizing the true thinker, the hidden voice behind the thoughts in your head. He understood that the mind is not merely a tool for manipulating the external world, but the vital energetic thread connecting the conscious ego to the vast unconscious realm that directs everything. When you fail to truly understand your mind, you are not utilizing it. You are being utilized by it. Pay meticulous attention. Life operates on a profound principle. It always repeats the lesson until you learn it. This repetition is not malicious. It occurs because the unconscious demands that you finally become conscious. When you observe the repetition, the cycle stops. When you fail to observe, the pattern continues. The external world is merely a screen reflecting the inner, unacknowledged images you have yet to face. If you harbor any doubt, observe your own immediate reactions for a single day. When a slight or insult lands, the first instinctive reaction does not originate from your rational self. It surges from an old wound. When worry consumes you, that anxiety does not fundamentally belong to the present situation. It is an emotional memory you are reenacting. When you feel the desperate need to prove your worth, that is not an authentic need. It is a primal cry for acknowledgement from an inner fragment that has remained perpetually unrecognized. And the most terrifying realization is that the unconscious operates without morality. It holds no care for what is objectively good or bad. It is fiercely, ruthlessly loyal, only to the emotional energy you repeat. If you persist in thinking you are insignificant, it will diligently create external circumstances that perfectly prove your insignificance. If you believe the world is adversarial, it will ensure you perceive only evidence that meticulously reinforces that belief. You believe you are looking at the world, but in truth, you are merely gazing at the reflection of your fixed inner beliefs. So, Jung posited that this transcends mere cognitive bias. It is the fundamental law governing the operation of the psyche. Your conscious mind initiates a choice, and the unconscious makes it manifest, not through sorcery, but because psychological energy always seeks its corresponding material form. What transformation occurs when you initiate the process of seeing? When you stop identifying with the relentless stream of thoughts and cultivate the practice of observing the mind itself, a profound separation begins, the initial movement of the individuation process. For the first time, you grasp the core truth. You are not your thoughts. You are the consciousness observing those thoughts. And in that realization, you reclaim the fundamental key to freedom. But this liberation is conditional. It does not arise from forcing an artificial positive attitude. It arises from the courage to be brutally honest with your own shadow. You cannot master that which you do not dare to look at. And you will never truly control your life until you learn to confront the actual silent controller residing within you, the unexamined mind. When you begin the challenging work of recognizing that your mind is not truly under conscious control, a second profound truth gradually emerges, one that is both frightening and immensely sacred. Each of your thoughts does not merely pass through your head. It is being actively listened to and responded to by the world itself. What you think is never energetically neutral. It acts as a summons, calling forth external circumstances that correspond precisely to its frequency and energy. The manner in which you think not only shapes your immediate emotional state, but holds the power to summon reality. Jung stated profoundly, "Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes." Shutterstock Explore. This is not simply a piece of poetic philosophy. It is an accurate psychoanalytic description of the operational mechanism of reality. We assume we exist in a fixed physical world, but in truth, we inhabit a world meticulously shaped by the mind's projections. You are not seeing things objectively as they exist. You are seeing the world as a mirror reflecting the light and shadow of your own consciousness. When your inner mind is disordered, the external world seems to respond with chaos. Conversely, when you establish order and alignment within yourself, everything outside begins to naturally fall into place. Thinking, in this Jungian view, is far more than mere brain activity. It is the language of the soul. Every thought, every emotional imprint is emitted like a frequency, a subtle vibration spreading into the invisible space of the collective unconscious. These vibrations connect with corresponding circumstances, people, and opportunities at the same energetic frequency, weaving the intricate fabric we call my life. If you habitually think you are insignificant, you will unconsciously filter reality to see only evidence of insignificance. If you believe people are inherently suspicious, you will magnetically attract interactions that reinforce that suspicion. If you consistently carry an inner sense of worthiness, the world will present doors and opportunities that open only for those who project that intrinsic value. The unconscious does not operate by the rules of formal logic. Its law is the law of symbols. It does not comprehend reason, but responds to the profound language of images, emotions, and deeply held beliefs. Thus, every time you engage in thought, you are sending a symbolic code into the inner space, and the world responds by rearranging material circumstances to match that code. You are annoyed by the weather, the noise, the impending workday. As you navigate the day, you encounter only difficult people. Traffic is intentionally obstructive, a colleague is standoffish. You conclude today is simply a bad day. What you fail to see is that your mind's internal energy field created that badness. You stepped into the world as an energetic magnet, attracting every experience that matched the frequency of irritation you were carrying. In contrast, on a day where you feel light, grateful, and trusting, obstacles seem to dissolve. Strangers smile. Tasks flow easily. Small things turn favorably. This is not a miracle. It is the direct response of reality to the wave of energy your thinking emits. Just as water reflects only the shape of the one gazing into it, the world can only present itself exactly as the internal state you bring to it. Jung called this the principle of meaningful coincidence, synchronicity. When the mind achieves a certain level of internal alignment, coincidental events that seem impossibly relevant begin to occur. You think of an old friend and they call. You long for direction and a unique opportunity appears. Nothing is random. The universe is simply responding to the vibration of thought you are emitting. The tragedy is that most of us do not think with intention. We think by habit. Thinking is not an action we consciously control, but a conditioned reaction. Consequently, we continuously emit repeating signals: fear, scarcity, doubt, and comparison. The world, in its fidelity, responds ruthlessly to precisely what we send. When we lament, "Why do I always encounter difficulties? Me?" the answer lies directly in the signal. We are vibrating at the frequency of difficulty. Thinking, therefore, never terminates inside your head. It is a powerful creative action. It is the summoning ritual you perform every single day, whether you are conscious of its power or not. The only existential question is, what are you summoning? Belief or fear? Fullness or lack? The individual who genuinely grasps this principle lives entirely differently. They abandon the futile attempt to control every external detail because they know the crucial factor is not the outcome, but the frequency they carry while moving toward it. They do not passively repeat, "I want success," but embody the mindset of one who has already succeeded. They do not beg for respect. They act from the internal certainty of one who is worthy of respect, understanding that the unconscious makes no distinction between desire and reality. It listens only to the strongest belief you emit. The world treats you precisely the way you treat yourself in thought. If you keep telling your mind, "I am trying," the world will continue to give you opportunities to try. But if you shift that declaration, "I am living as one who has achieved," the unconscious will immediately begin to rearrange the entire system of your beliefs, emotions, and subsequent behaviors to align with that potent image. This is not mere autosuggestion. It is the fundamental restructuring of reality through consciously chosen belief. Jung once likened the mind to a miniature universe where each thought is a shining star. Those stars connect into constellations that guide fate. If you seek to change the journey, do not exhaust yourself pushing the ship in another direction. Change the guiding constellation within. Number 3, change does not begin from action, but from redefining who am I. When you consciously begin to grasp that, thinking is not just an arbitrary thought, but the active summons of the external world. An inevitable and critical question arises: so, who is the one thinking? Because if the external world is a flawless reflection of you, then who is this fundamental you? Is it the personality working, striving, and worrying every day? Or is it something deeper, quieter, something you have never truly dared to confront? This is the precise point where the real journey begins. The realization that all profound and lasting change does not originate in action, but in the redefinition of the self. Modern life dictates that to change, one must do something different. Change jobs, change environments, or change relationships. But all these external actions are merely changing the costume worn by the same old, unexamined self. You can change careers, but if you internally harbor the belief that you are fundamentally unworthy, you will inevitably repeat the same cycle of self-sabotage anywhere you go. You can terminate a toxic relationship, but if your unconscious still dictates, "I am not good enough to be loved authentically," you will unconsciously seek out the exact type of person who forces you to prove that foundational belief. Jung called this the projection of the inner world outward. We believe we are interacting with others, but in truth, we are confronting the reflection of our inner definitions. The world does not grant us what we want, but what we deeply believe we are. Therefore, any external action not guided by a fundamental change in self-definition will be nothing more than a cosmetic repetition. Try observing how someone describes their identity. I am the type who is not good at communicating. I am an anxious warrior. I am an impatient person. Each such statement is an unconscious command sent to the psyche. The brain, in its capacity for adaptation, finds ways to relentlessly reinforce that declared truth. You cease to act freely. You act as an actor rigidly following a script that you yourself have meticulously written with the words, I am. This script is the composite of all the beliefs you carry about your worth, your capabilities, and your destiny. The terrifying insight is that people rarely examine whether that self-concept was truly chosen by them. For most, it was written by the hands of others, parents, society, religion, or intense childhood memories. Imagine a rose seed sown in a field of weeds and persistently told that it is merely grass. It learns to bend with the wind, to fear releasing its fragrance, because it fears the consequence of difference. But the essence of the rose does not disappear. It merely sleeps beneath layers of protective fear, waiting only for the day it is called by its true name. You cannot become someone else. You can only awaken your original self. Action arising from the conscious ego only creates draining effort, but action arising from the deeper self creates effortless natural power. The individual who acts to prove who they are will always be exhausted. The individual who simply knows who they are, every action they take carries inherent force. You sense this invisible weight in people who are truly present. The classic example is Viktor Frankl. In horrific circumstances, when everything external was stripped away, he retained the last human freedom, the right to define who he was in that situation. He did not define himself as a victim, but as an observer of human functioning in despair. That internal definition saved him. Frankl later asserted that, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. Jung would call that space the critical moment when consciousness awakens. Change does not begin when you force yourself to do differently. It begins when you learn to see yourself from outside the stream of thoughts. When you are no longer the one being swept along, but the one observing the flow, then you connect with the part of yourself that is not defined by roles or temporary circumstances. And once that fundamental I is redefined, the external world begins its necessary rearrangement to reflect the new, integrated self. Every great human action begins with redefining oneself. Try looking inward now. Who are you acting as? The fearful or the trusting? The victim or the creator? The one fleeing or the one returning? Every thought you hold, every word you utter, every choice you make answers that profound question, whether you are conscious of it or not. And if you fail to answer it for yourself, the world will answer for you, sending circumstances that force you to learn the truth of who you are. The journey continues, moving past the self-definition of the ego into the deeper mechanism of creation. No matter how much conscious control you attempt to exert over your thinking, there is a profound, deeper layer within you, ancient, silent, and unwavering, that quietly directs everything. The unconscious. Thinking is merely a thin veil draped over a much vaster kingdom. If the conscious mind is the tool for guidance, then the unconscious is the ultimate architect of your reality. The critical task now is to stop trying to think better and start looking directly into the source of every thought. Because only by confronting the darkness that builds your reality do you truly touch your own creative power. Number 1. Everything you do not confront will come back to control you. There's a strange human paradox. We universally believe that what we consciously avoid will eventually disappear. We fill our lives with distraction, work, entertainment, relentless social media, thinking we have moved on. But the unconscious does not forget, it does not erase, it only buries, and everything that is buried does not die. It merely hides, gaining power while waiting for the moment to return. Jung called this hidden vital force the shadow. It is not an inherently evil psychological entity, but rather the essential part of you that has been rejected, denied, and exiled from the light of consciousness. It is precisely this unacknowledged energy that holds the greatest power, until you make the unconscious conscious. It will direct your life and you will call it fate. What you refuse to recognize in yourself automatically becomes the invisible driver of your life. The more energy you expend denying the shadow, the stronger its compulsion becomes. The more you flee, the more relentlessly it pursues. Look around you. The recurring loops in life follow this pattern. The woman who repeatedly meets the same type of man who hurts her. The person who always falls into situations that validate their core belief of, I am not good enough. The parent who unconsciously repeats the behavior of the parent they once feared. None of this is random. It is the unconscious seeking to be seen. The unconscious does not communicate through formal language, it speaks in symbols. When you refuse to listen to your internal signals, it will escalate and speak through external events. If you ignore your emotions, it may send a person to force you to feel them. If you refuse to stop, it may manifest collapse, crisis, or breakdown. These are all the language of the unconscious, desperate signals from the deepest part of you pleading, look at me. Modern psychology confirms you cannot erase emotions, you can only displace them. Suppressed anger flows down and turns into depression. Denied fear hardens into control. Harden? Unacknowledged trauma becomes a repetition compulsion. We reenact old wounds, not because we desire suffering, but because the unconscious is desperately trying to heal them. If we are not conscious, we only repeat, we never liberate. Do you notice that people often fear exactly what they need most? The one who fears loneliness seeks relationships that leave them abandoned. The unconscious has one fundamental goal: to become whole. It relentlessly pulls you back to what you have not accepted so you can finally confront and integrate it. Every time you reject a part of yourself, the world will send you a mirror reflecting that part. Consider the person who irritates you with their arrogance. Jung would ask, are you certain that arrogance does not exist within you? Perhaps it is there repressed, having been taught that pride is unacceptable. And now, that rejected energy appears outside in the form of another, offering you the crucial chance to see yourself. Every harsh judgment is a sign that the unconscious is urging you to acknowledge a part of yourself living in that projection. Jung would remind us, no, you are not a victim. You are a creator who does not yet know they are creating. The unconscious is not an enemy, but the silent architect. It controls you not to punish, but to awaken you. Every conflict, crisis, and pain is the finger of the unconscious pointing precisely to where you have not yet looked. Many fear looking into the darkness because they believe they will lose the light. But Jung understood the opposite. Only by going through the darkness do you find the true light. The light is not distant. It lies right behind the fear you are avoiding. The brave person is not the one without fear, but the one who looks straight into fear and steps forward. In Jungian analytical therapy, this process is called shadow integration. It doesn't mean becoming perfect. It means becoming more real. You stop living in an inner war between what I should and I want. When the shadow is accepted, when you say, yes, I am angry, I am selfish, I am afraid, those parts lose their compulsive power. They transform into the living energy of understanding and freedom. Every time circumstances push you to the limit, pause and ask, which part of me wants to be seen? It is a forgotten ally. When you dare to listen, you will see a miracle. What once terrified you is the very source of the power you need for rebirth. Number 2, you do not live in reality. You live in symbols. When you grasp that everything you avoid returns to control you, you encounter an even deeper truth. The unconscious doesn't just manipulate behavior. It fundamentally shapes the way you see the world. You do not inhabit reality as you imagine. You inhabit a symbolic version of reality, a world where everything from people and dreams to external events is a metaphor of the mind. The psyche is a self-regulating system that maintains its equilibrium just as the body does. Everything you experience is a metaphorical message from within, part of a self-regulating dialogue. You think you are living among events, but you are living among symbols telling your own story. The unconscious doesn't speak in sentences, it speaks in images, symbols, and myths. This symbolic language is universal. A person dreams of a snake in ancient times. A person dreams of a snake today. Both are touching the same archetype. A profound symbol residing in the collective unconscious Shutterstock. Explore. The collective unconscious is the deepest layer of the mind, the repository of images and patterns shared by all humanity. There dwell the archetypes, the hero, the trickster, the child, the shadow, and the light. When you live, love, and suffer, you are not just living a personal life. You are reenacting a part of humanity's mythology through your own existence. The man who seeks endless glory is living the hero archetype. The woman who always sacrifices for others is channeling the sacrificial mother archetype. When an archetype remains unrecognized, it becomes a controlling force. When made conscious, it becomes a source of creative power. Jung believed you cannot understand yourself without understanding symbols, because symbols are the bridge between the unconscious and consciousness, between the immense depth of the soul and the limited light of the ego. The outside world is a mirror, but it reflects in metaphors. The death of a relationship is a symbol of change in the self. Losing a job is a symbolic invitation to redirect your energy. Illness can be the language of the soul, demanding attention to a life lived contrary to your true nature. Those who lose the capacity for symbolic thinking often fall into depression because they lose meaning. They see the world as a machine and suffering as meaningless. But those who understand the language of symbols ask, "What is this teaching me?" Symbols, for Jung, are the intersection between two worlds, the tangible and the intangible. Every event is a flow of energy, a bridge helping humans communicate with the depths of the soul. When you read that language, life is no longer random, it is a dialogue. The modern world has severed us from this language. We dismiss dreams, ignore emotions, and see symbols as mere art. But Jung taught that you can reconnect by listening to dreams, observing synchronicities, meaningful coincidences, and examining the images that obsess you. The reality you live in is a symbolic mirror reflecting the soul. Every time you recognize the meaning behind an event, you draw closer to wholeness. Number 3. The collective unconscious holds every archetype you need to become yourself. When you realize that you live in a world of symbols, you reach the final threshold, the profound truth that all symbols are not merely personal, they belong to humanity. The symbols that appear in your life emanate from the deepest layer of the mind, the collective unconscious. Jung described the collective unconscious as an ocean in which each individual is but a drop. It is the bottomless depth where the archetypes reside, primordial mental patterns that you are born with. They are the DNA of the soul. You don't learn them, you remember them. You remember them. The archetypes are living forces. They move within you, governing how you love, fear, and dream. Each archetype is a powerful resource needed for the journey of growth. But if you fail to recognize them, they become traps. When an archetype possesses you, the human ego is swallowed by the very energy it should be collaborating with. When you are swept into relationships that make you lose yourself, you may be governed by the unbalanced lover archetype. You need the wisdom of the wise old man archetype to set boundaries. When you constantly live to please others, the martyr archetype is overactive and needs harmonizing with the warrior archetype. The conflicts within you are simply archetypes that are not yet harmonized. If recognized, archetypes are not just lessons, but sacred resources. When you consciously connect with the appropriate archetype, your vital energy changes remarkably. No one learns to become. They remember the inherent nature stored in the collective unconscious. When you fall into crisis, you don't need to create power. You only need to activate the right archetype because within you, the entire resource is already stored. This is the archetype your soul needs to complete itself. In that depth, you no longer seek to become someone else. You realize that every archetype necessary for your wholeness is already within you. You only need to dare to listen, to go down to the depths, and to let the unconscious guide. And then you no longer seek power. You become power. From the deep realization that the unconscious shapes reality, the journey pivots. It is no longer a descent to understand, but a return to unite. The goal shifts from decoding symbolic images to becoming the most vivid, authentic image of one's own soul. This is the courage to step out of the mold created by external expectations to reclaim the true self. This is the pathway of individuation. Number 1. Persona. The mask and the white shadow. After acknowledging the shadow and recognizing the underlying archetypes operating within us, the next phase begins with a silent, essential question. Amidst all these roles and compulsions, where is the real me? This is the moment you confront the persona, the mask you wear to survive in the world. The persona is the necessary psychological costume that helps you function. As a child, you learn the behaviors that earned love. As an adult, you adapted to social norms. But Jung warned that when you forget this is only a costume, you begin to live as if the mask is your true face. The persona becomes an invisible prison, luxurious, perhaps praised, but profoundly suffocating. The paradox is that society encourages this identification. We live for applause rather than for truth. This phenomenon is called identification with the role. You lose the self to protect the image. When this persists, the soul rebels. Unexplained fatigue, a sense of meaninglessness despite success, emptiness despite love. All are signals that the soul is rebelling against identification with the persona. You are imprisoned by the very mask you created. The persona was a survival tool, but it becomes a white shadow, a shadow of false light which makes you forget where the true light originates. Jung does not command you to discard the mask completely. He only invites you to see the boundary. The persona is a tool, not the self. Rupage made to self. To return to yourself, you must be willing to take it off. This process is the first psychological death in the journey of individuation, the death of the constructed ego. When the persona is lost, in failure, rejection, or misunderstanding, something real emerges from the rubble. Real pain, real tears, real vulnerability. That real trembling thing is the seed of the true soul. The goal is no longer to be good, but to be real. Every question you ask yourself, who am I trying to please? If I were not afraid, how would I live? Is a layer of the mask being removed, and behind each layer is a part of the soul set free. Number 2, the shadow is not the enemy. When the mask cracks, the first thing you encounter is not light but darkness, the shadow. This is where the journey of individuation truly intensifies. Everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied in the individual's conscious life, the blacker and denser it is. What you deny most vehemently is what lives deepest within you. The shadow manifests as projection. When you dare not look at the shadow in yourself, you see it in others. You criticize someone's selfishness, but in truth, you are projecting your own unacknowledged selfishness. The external world becomes a mirror of what you refuse to accept within. The greatest turning point in the Jungian journey is the realization that the shadow is not an enemy to be destroyed, but an ally to be understood. In that darkness resides not only guilt and fear, but also power, creativity, instinct, and vital energy that has been repressed. The shadow is the treasure guarded by the dragon. Confronting it transforms that dragon into your protector. Shadow work. Artists work with the shadow, transforming repressed energy into creative light, e.g., painting from pain. Envy as a door. When you envy someone, you are envying a part of the self you have forgotten. When you are angry at someone's authenticity, your inner self is calling, "Let me live that way too." Confronting the shadow is a sacred act. You are accepting the whole of yourself, not just the socially acceptable parts. We see this law every day. The person who believes they are always betrayed unconsciously seeks out betrayers. The one who believes they are not good enough acts small, and the world confirms it. The unconscious is seeking to prove what you believe is true. But this also means when you change the root belief, you change reality. Belief is not words. It is a state of vibration. When belief is strong enough, it becomes a psychological energy field, causing every thought, cell, and action to vibrate at the same frequency. The outside world then adjusts to match that belief. The paradox is this: you only begin to see the evidence when you no longer need it, because belief belongs to the soul and evidence belongs to the temporary, conscious mind. When you say, "Why no, even though I have not seen," the unconscious receives this as a definitive command and begins to act. Number 2, belief is a spiritual act, not a fantasy. Belief is not an illusion or fantasy. It is a creative act, the soul choosing to align with what is not yet manifest. Belief changes the inner structure of the person, causing them to speak, see, and act differently, and that very change shifts the world. Belief is the movement of energy. Fantasy is only the movement of thought. When you believe, you place your consciousness in the same frequency as the vast unconscious, releasing a flow of energy that Jung termed numinous experience, the profound feeling of being upheld by an invisible force. True belief is not bargaining with the universe, believing to get something. It is a consent to the deeper order of life, believing to become something. To believe is a leap of the soul, stepping beyond the boundary of fear into the space of the unknown. It is the small, persistent flame you hold while walking in the night. It does not dispel all darkness, but enough to show the next step. Number 3, the world does not respond to what you want, but to what you believe you deserve. This is the deeper layer. The universe does not respond to the shallow language of want, the ego. It responds to the profound frequency of desire. When you visualize a symbol of peace while affirming it, the message becomes alive. Repetition is not a mechanical action, but a ritual, a prayer sent to the deepest layer of the mind. Number 2, ritual is the bridge between the invisible and the visible. Ritual is the symbolic structure where consciousness and unconscious meet. It turns the abstract into the livable. Every consciously repeated action with deep emotion is a ritual. Habit is repetition in unconsciousness. Ritual is repetition in awareness. Ritual is the way we respond to the unconscious in its own language, images, rhythm. When you perform daily rituals, like mindful coffee brewing, journaling, or conscious breathing, you are sending the unconscious the message, I choose this direction. This reestablishes the sacred thread between human and soul. Number 3, behavior creates identity. The final and most crucial step is embodiment. If belief is not lived, it will fade. The soul does not care what you think, it cares what you do. Behavior is the final language the unconscious understands. The unconscious does not distinguish between pretending and truly being. It only records behavioral data. If every day you act like a strong person, speak clearly, and hold a confident posture, the unconscious will begin to reprogram the self-image to match that signal. You do not start confident and then dare to speak. You speak, and through that, you become confident. Behavior is the supreme ritual. It turns invisible intention into visible form. When consciousness dissolves into action, the human is reborn. Crystal Ball Final Part 6. The new self awakening. The journey culminates in the awakening of the new self, where the ego ceases to be a controller and becomes a channel for a life energy greater than itself. Number 1. Identity is what you decide to repeat. Identity is not something you find. It is something you build every day by what you choose to repeat. You must practice a new identity. Each conscious behavior you perform differently is a line of code, rewriting the structure of the unconscious, reclaiming sovereignty. Number 2, act like the one who has it all. To teach the unconscious wholeness, you must embody it. When you act like the one who has, you awaken the king archetype, confidence and order within. This is not self-deception. It is an embodiment ritual. You are not pretending. You are awakening an archetype within yourself. When you no longer try to prove your worth, you become unshakable. Number 3, the world does not bow to the one who tries. It submits to the one who does not doubt himself. The one who tries is divided between desire and doubt, a state of psychological fragmentation. The world submits to the one without doubt because in him, energy flows consistently. True confidence arises from having looked straight into your own darkness and no longer fearing it. The world only resists the one still divided between belief and fear. But for the one without doubt, the one in a state of complete individuation, reality has only one choice: submission. You no longer seek power, you become power. The awakened man does not need to shout. His silence carries weight. Up there. He does not need to be seen. His self is the light. He does not need to prove worth. His presence is the evidence. When you reach this state, the world is no longer a place to conquer. It becomes the obedient reflection of a soul that knows itself. Yet you are not the seeker of power. You are the power seeking to remember itself.